Many a driver has been able to take the transition from sim to real before, but not many of them have been quite as young as the young drivers that are going to be taking to the championship this season. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2024 Ginetta Junior official eSeries, brought to you by Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. My name is Zach Sweeney. Alongside me in the commentary box is Jude Peters. Of course, with Tom O'Farrell behind the scenes, Mick Sutton, our series organizer, and of course, that man right there, Jordan Taylor. He drives a safety car or something. We're here today for round number 2 of this fantastic championship, where one of our young racers could well take themselves to the real life racing should they be successful. Of course, Alton Park kickstarted things off a week ago on the 22nd of August. Today we're here at Donington Park GP before we head to Wales to Anglesey, Snetterton 300 to round off the first half of the season, before we head to Silverstone, Brands Hatch, and returning to Cheshire on the 3rd of October to round off the 7-week season. Jude, of course, welcome back to the championship. You were alongside Alex last week. Seems to be quite a hotly competitive championship, considering these guys are only 14 and 15.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, last week, yeah, we saw some amazing racing from especially the top two, really, with both races being really great to watch, with the reverse grid, the two starting at the back, managing to get P1 and 2. Lots of drama all around the pack, really, and it was great to watch. So yeah, I'm hoping we get the same thing here at Donington this week.
Hopefully so. There you can see, of course, the championship standings. Logan McAllister kicked things off in sensational fashion, only tipping Gabriel Norse by 2 points, thanks to the bonus points for fastest lap in both race 1 and race 2. Be interesting to see the progress those two drivers have as the season progresses. Will Clark, consistent with a double podium in 3rd ahead of Addison Smith, another consistent driver with 2 P4 finishes. Harry Power, completing the top 5 ahead of Cairo Samuel. Nathan Smith from Lewis Morton Evans, Max Galgi, Samuel Chilton, our 10th and final driver that took to last week at Alton Park. We have got a couple of more entries to talk about when we progress our way into the qualifying session, and there you can see what these drivers are fighting for. First place gets themselves free entry into the Ginetta Scholarship held over October, to hopefully see them take to a full-time racing in 2025. Second place, though, fear not. Even if you come second best, you still get yourself 3 hours in the Ginetta simulator and a Ginetta factory tour as well, so to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Third place gets themselves a nice upgrade to their sim rig, the 34-inch Samsung gaming monitor. Each round, we're going to be giving away a pair of top-quality 3M UK sim gloves to the driver we deem to be the best of the 2 races. And those that show up and get 100% attendance get themselves a lovely Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing cap. Jude, of course, you're a driver that has done exactly what these young drivers are trying to do, earning their spot on the Ginetta grid. How difficult is that process then? Sort of that whole boot camp sort of experience, that weekend they're going to take to, of course, this is only the first step. It gets a whole lot harder from here, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, a difficult championship. And then as you get into the scholarship, they test you on a lot more. So, of course, you go into a real car around Blyton Park. And it's a 2-day, well, if you're lucky enough to get to the second day, it's a 2-day test of your fitness, your media, and of course your driving, with it being primarily driving. On the first day there's fitness and media, and then on the second day it's just the media and the driving. But yeah, it's definitely a fiercely competitive competition over the weekend, with 60 drivers competing. So yeah, I was very fortunate to have won.
Very, very much so. Is it going well?
Yeah, it's going really well, actually. It's just first ever year of racing, real racing, coming from the sim. So it's all been a big learning curve, but we're making good progress to getting towards the front of the grid, with our last round having our best quali, being in the top 5. So yeah, it's been a really, really great season so far.
Amazing. 2024 going well for Jude Peters. 2025 could go well for one of our young drivers here if they're able to go all the way. We're going to jump our way into that qualifying session. 15 minutes they do have. They've already completed a good few minutes of that. 10.5 left to go. At the front, it is going to be Will Clark that is setting the benchmark as things stand, but Riley Poger's more representative lap times come in. Jude, Donington Park, track position, do those two things go hand in hand, or are we going to have a good race on our hands?
I mean, yeah, I think regardless of whether you qualify on pole, it's definitely not a done deal around here, because the track is very wide. You know, it accommodates for British GT and back in the day even F1. So I think, yeah, there's lots of opportunity for overtaking, especially around this GP circuit with the last two corners. Turn 1 being probably one of our primary overtaking zones, and coming down corner curves into the old hairpin is another place where if you're on the outside, it's probably not one of the most favourable positions to be. So yeah, this is definitely going to be an interesting race, and not one where the pole sitter can just take the win, as we see Addison Smith going for a spin there. I believe that's coming out of McLean's there.
Yeah, it is up the hill, of course, towards Coppice. Very easy to get it wrong if you catch the curb in the wrong space, but fear not. Of course, it is only qualifying, meant to push the limits as such. Riley Pogue currently sat P2 in the provisional standings, just behind Anthony Roberts, one of our new entries for this week. And of course, if you are looking at this, you've got a young racer at home that's born between 2009 and 2010. They could well get themselves onto this grid. We don't just have the whole season entry. You can join on that round-to-round basis. So if they're looking at this thinking it's a lot of fun, get them involved, see if they can rack it up against some of our very talented young drivers. Of course, Riley Pogue as well, one of our new entries, alongside Asian Nija, of course, Callum Boot joining us as well. So 4 new drivers taking to the grid this week, and hopefully we can see them more long-term as well over the rest of the season. 8 minutes left to go. The gap at the front between the top 3, less than 0.2 of a second, make that slightly shorter, of course, as Will Clark is trying to extend the gap at the front. 54.4 is the way to go. Of course, let's see if we can follow on a lap. Anthony Roberts closes the gap at the front. A 10th now is the gap between P1 and P2. Seen a lot of packs on the track, Jude. Is slipstream sort of one of those things, particularly in a lower powered car, that these drivers need to be mindful of in qualifying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in real life, it's certainly one of the things that everyone looks for and hopes to get in quali. In real life, we have about 3 to 5 second gaps in qualifying between us all as we get sent out for our 3 laps, and you do hope to close to the guy in front of you, because especially around somewhere like Donington here, in real life at least, the slipstream can make up 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds even. So especially since they're low power cars, it does make a big difference if you can get into that toe of the driver in front of you.
Exactly, and of course with Donington Park being very undulating, you can see heading into Coppice, that uphill run, a lot of downhill runs as well. So if you can get in that slipstream, not only is it going to boost your lap time, but also maybe make Donington a really raceable circuit, especially in these Ginettas, right? Because that's what I've always loved about sports cars, is the sense that they're fast, don't get me wrong, but they're not overwhelmingly quick, so that you can still sort of, the braking zones are elongated a little bit. There is a little bit of variance in racing lines and things that you can take, and that really does open the door for some great battling.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would go as far as to say that these cars are fairly slow, but that's what makes them so good, because going into a junior category, you can't just be jumping in straight into a 500 horsepower GT3 beast. You need to start somewhere and build up, and with them being slow, that's what makes the racing so amazing, because no one can really get away from each other, and you can afford to be really, really close to each other, because a little bit of contact here and there doesn't make the difference. And these cars are fairly robust, so a little bit of contact doesn't make or break your race, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can pop up a bonnet or something like that, and that definitely makes a difference, but just a little bit of rubbing that you do typically see in this series, yeah, that's what makes them so amazing for racing.
Get your elbows out then, is what Jude Peters is saying. Have a little bit of a scrap. Don't be scared. Send the moves. Which, to be fair, is something that young drivers, as Will Clark was able to extend the gap at pole, get closer to a low 54 with a 54.253. But that's what's always fascinated me about younger drivers, is that it's always one of two extremes. Either they don't care, they're not scared of anything, and will send every single move, or they're more on the cautious side. What sort of side of the extremes would you sort of put yourself on, Jude? Are you one of those that are like win it or bin it?
I wouldn't say that I'm on the extreme end of that. I mean, it's something we've been working on throughout the season, because having never done karting, that sense of, quite being in the pack, and especially in a Ginetta Junior series where if you're not looking at overtaking the guy behind, there's someone behind you trying to come up your inside, and you might often be getting sent round down the inside, round the outside, and all over, really. So you really need to keep your wits about you and make sure that you are ready to get your elbows out when you can. And as I've been told in the past, and I quite like this expression, is you need to get your elbows out but not punch them in the face. So there's definitely a fine line to balance there.
I'm definitely writing that one down. Let's put it that way. That is a fantastic expression. Will Clark, of course, our pole sitter, provisionally rounds the final corner here at Goddard's. A surprising amount of undulation going through Goddard's as he comes into the pit lane anyway. But when I first went to Donington, I was quite astonished as to actually how steep that run downhill is through Goddard's. On this sim, it's kind of there, but not really quite to the extent you see it in real life. So if anyone has the opportunity to go to Donington, I definitely recommend it. Fantastic circuit. Located in Derbyshire in the UK. 4.5 minutes left to go. There you can see Morton Evans currently not quite able to put in a representative lap time thus far, but still a little bit of time left to go in the session. And I've got to be honest, Donington Park is one of those circuits where, as a lap, it's a lot of fun to go in hot lap, right? It's fantastic to jump in and do lap upon lap and really start to nail. But it's one of those ones, well, at least for me, maybe I'm just bad at driving, but it's just one of those ones that you're constantly coming out of a lap saying, I could have found a little bit more. It's so hard to sort of get that perfect lap.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are quite a few corners around here, and it's definitely not a short circuit, and these cars being nearly 2 minutes long. So, being the number of corners that there are, but also the technicality of the corners. So, as we see Louis Morton Evans coming through there, it's that final corner is a very difficult corner, and the corner before it, Melbourne Loop. So it's a very technical circuit, especially also as you come down Craner Curves and into the old hairpin. It's somewhere that you really need to hook up the lap, and it's difficult to do that. So yeah, I would definitely agree that you come out of the lap thinking, oh yeah, there's a little bit more in that corner or a little bit more in this corner. And yeah, it becomes a bit of a perfection-seeking lap around here.
Yeah, very much so. Doing some laps in Donington a little bit earlier on in the set, of course, actually. As Riley Pogue, good little drift there, looking very cool. Not great for lap time, but definitely getting the style points. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I was doing a lap in some of the retro touring cars on Assetto Corsa, and really impressed, obviously, as to the quality of the build, but also just how fun it is to drive. And constantly, again, I love how the car's driving, but just constantly coming off a lap saying, I missed a 10th through Coppice, or I missed a 10th going through the Fogarty S's, whatever it was. There was always more to go and find. Of course, if you do like touring cars and you want to get yourself involved in a PASR championship, we have got the Super Touring Challenge coming up this Tuesday. Get yourself entered. Maybe for this Tuesday. If you're looking to eye up the rest of the season as well, make sure you are jumping and getting yourself involved, because touring cars, similar to the Ginettas, are always a lot of fun. As you say, Jude, allowing a little bit of rubbing, allowing a little bit of elbows out, but not quite punching each other in the face. And well, sometimes it depends as to how argy-bargy you want to get, but nonetheless, if you're watching out there and you fancy it, maybe some of the parents of the kids that were maybe slightly too old to jump into this championship, they can get themselves into the Super Touring Challenge and have a go out on circuit. 2 minutes left to go in qualifying. The gap at the front is closing, less than a tenth and a half between Will Clark and, of course, Anthony Roberts. 1 and 2 not separated by much at all. In fact, the gap is close to exactly half a tenth of a second. That front row, in fact, the front three, incredibly close.
Yeah, very, very close, much like real life. So the gaps in real life are very, very small between all the drivers. And, even last weekend, Silverstone National, I put myself P5 in qualifying, and I think I was a 10th off of P1 or 2. So the gaps really do get very close, as we're seeing that half a tenth gap from P1 to P2. I'd quickly like to say a shout out to Callum Boot. He's done some of the mechanicking on my car on a test day, and his dad, Simon Boot, he might be watching now. He does the mechanicking for us at E3, one of the mechanics. Yeah, I'd like to say a quick shout out to them and thank you for working on my car.
Mechanics are always a huge help when it comes to a race weekend. I remember commentating on the Enduro car 24 Hours of Anglesey and going into the Autotech garage, coming out of the night into the daytime, and they had to do a hub change and a drive shaft change. And the intensity that happens in a race mechanic's garage is a lot. It's a difficult job to do, but without them, of course, you couldn't go racing. It's not just the drivers that jump in and drive it quickly. It's the mechanics that set the car up, make sure it's ready and prepped to go quickly, because you can't drive a car quickly if the car won't switch on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in these series, there's not too much you can change on the setup. So in real life, it's fairly fixed. Like, you can't change. Struggling to think of things you can't change now, but there is a lot you can't change. You can change like roll bars and a couple of bits like that, But so maximizing that is really, really important, and maximizing the fine margins that you can change, especially in a series like this where the margins are so close. It's all about, finding the maximum bit of performance you can out of the car. And yeah, that really does come from the mechanics, not just the people behind the wheel.
Late charge then from Anthony Roberts and Gabriel Norse to tip Will Clark, not by a small margin though, dipping under the 54 margins. Roberts takes it sub 54 with a 153.809 right at the death of qualifying, and in fact actually did not see the checker flag that last time by. So if he wants to, another lap is in the bag. What can Will Clark do in response? Running his way through at McLean's and Coppice onto this back straight towards the Fogarty S's. Got about a third of the lap left to run, but nearly half a second to find if he wants to nab that pole position that he's pretty much been the favourite for all session long. Just goes to show that one small change can have a huge consequence on the rest of the lap, and he's messed it up way too wide through the Fogarty S's. Might be a lap invalidation from Will Clark. He might still be able to get away with it. We'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, it seems that Anthony Roberts is our pole position sitter.
Yeah, it does seem that way. I mean, we've got no laps left, and the gap that he's got is fairly significant now, especially in this series. So it does seem like he's going to be the man to take pole position.
Indeed so, unless Will Clark can do anything. Doesn't seem to be any signs of aborting the lap, so runs his way through Goddard's for the final time. In fact, no, he is going to abandon his lap. Makes me look really stupid. Cheers for that, mate. Anthony Roberts, there he is then, our pole position sitter, nabbing it right at the death of the session after sitting half a tenth back on Will Clark, was able to pull one out of the bag. And sometimes that is all it is, right, Jude? Oh my goodness me, there we go. Addison Smith up to second place, joining Roberts on the front row. And again, proving my point that I'm going to make here. It doesn't take a lot for you to then suddenly find, 3-4 tenths of a second on a lap, particularly maybe in a car like this with the driving style that you've got to have. You can just nail one corner or a sequence of corners and look at your delta and go, hang on, I'm 2 or 3 tenths up here. And that is the difference that it made to get Roberts and Smith that pole position and front row lockout.
Yeah, I mean, it was really difficult in the traffic to try and find any space to put in a lap like that. But I'm really happy with just about managing to take pole in the end.
Fantastic lap. And I mean, all throughout the session, you were sort of half a tenth back on Will Clark. What did you do different? Where was the time gained?
I was mainly just staying out of trouble from the traffic. I was getting towards the end of the lap and I'd make either a small mistake or just catch onto the back of someone. So I just had to hang back for a lap or two just to make sure I could push for the final 2 minutes of the session.
And what are the expectations then coming into this race for you? Of course, you've got 2 of them. You start race 1 from pole position. Obviously, the expectation is to go and keep it, but how hard do you think that battle is going to be?
I'm assuming the first couple laps are going to be quite hard with Will behind me, but I'm hoping that I can try and get a gap early on and then hopefully build on my lead, but all depends on what the first few laps bring.
Very, very nice indeed. Of course, congratulations on pole position. Hopefully you can convert it into a victory, of course, to kickstart your season. Very well done. Of course, it took a lot to get it in the end. It was a very, very close qualifying session, but in the end, you were able to nab it by just over a tenth of a second to Addison Smith. Best of luck then, Anthony. Thank you for jumping in and giving us a chat. Hopefully we'll be speaking to you at the end of race 1 as well.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff. There he is then, Anthony Roberts, our pole position sitter. And Jude, he definitely is keen to keep it going into turn 1.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, of course, with pretty much any racing series, lap 1 is where the positions tend to be lost and gained for the most part, and where the hardest battling comes. So it's definitely going to be a fierce battle that we see at the start, with all the times being quite so close. Everyone's pace seems to be pretty similar. So I'm sure that we're going to see some pretty harsh battles with people hoping to get into the lead and then kind of just defend, because once you do start defending, it can be quite difficult to get around somebody.
Exactly, and what we were talking about during qualifying, the Super Touring Sim Series, brought to you by PASR and Pro Simrig as well. Kickstarts, of course, here at Donington in a few days' time. This Tuesday on the 3rd of September, they get started for what is going to be a titanic battle all the way through the season. So if you're looking at that and you want to get yourself involved, definitely head into the Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing Discord. There should be some links in the description. Click on them, find your way through, and get yourself signed up. It should be a ton of fun, and we hope to see you there. Of course, thank you to everyone that's tuning in. Hello and welcome. If you are now just joining us, you're probably tuning in at right about the perfect time. Let us know your thoughts, your feelings, queries and questions, anything that really tickles your fancy in the YouTube chat. Let us know who you're supporting out at home, parents and friends of these young drivers, stars of the future, potentially here today at Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. We're moments away from getting the action started for race number 1 of round 2 of 2024 for the Ginetta Junior official eSeries here at Donington Park. And once again, what can we expect from turn 1? Of course, these young drivers might not have a plethora of racing experience under their belt thus far. Are we expecting fireworks or a little bit of a tame start?
It's always hard to tell when it comes to this sort of racing. You know, like when it comes to real life as well, it's always difficult to tell what's going to happen at the start. There's been incredibly hectic starts, but there's been very, very tame starts. So yeah, it's always impossible to predict what's about to happen.
Exactly, and I think we are about to get ourselves underway. 20 minutes on the clock, of course. It's Roberts and Smith that lock out that front row. Norse and Clark in behind. Riley Poe completes the top 5. Round number 2, of course, of this fantastic championship is about 30 seconds away. Jude, very quickly, who's coming out on top?
Oh, I think it's hard to tell. I mean, of course, Anthony Roberts on pole. He's got the chance to defend as hard as he can, and he could take the win by doing that, but I've seen Gabriel Norson fighting last round, and he seemed pretty strong, so not sure yet.
We'll find out. Of course, there you can see the 6 red lights illuminate your screen. 20 minutes on the clock. Round number 2, a jump start in the background. They've held for ages. Lights out. Let's go racing. Good start from pole position from Roberts. He leads Smith away from the grid. I think a couple of issues further back as well for some of our drivers. But as they run their way towards Red Gate for the first time, let's see who's going to be able to tip the scale going in. Who's going to have the run? Of course, it was Nija that unfortunately had that jump start. And that is going to cost them with a penalty. Drive through, we'd assume, heading on to the first lap. But nonetheless, it is going to be Roberts that is able to lead from Addison Smith, Gabriel Norse, Will Clark and Riley Pogue at the top 5. As of course, Donington Park, a very difficult circuit to navigate on the opening lap. Nija, of course, with that jump start is leading by a good couple of car lengths as they're now running their way through the old hairpin and up towards McLean's and Coppice. Of course, still Roberts that leads Addison Smith. There they are. Finally, we can jump into the action. That is our effective race leader, Anthony Roberts, doing exactly what he said he was going to do, which is keep the lead from lap number 1. And as they exit out of Coppice onto this back straight, not quite close enough really to launch much of an attack. We are going to be calling a safety car into effect. I think a couple of issues at the start, unfortunately, casting a shadow over this race. So Jordan Taylor is going to be earning his wage this week. He's going to actually have to do something. He'll join the circuit, hopefully back everyone up and bring this race to a stand still. Anthony Roberts then, he's going to have to control the field once again. Nija, of course, would assume is going to be serving that penalty that he undoubtedly received for jumping the start. But Jude, from what we did see of the start, it seems, like I say, Roberts just doing exactly what he needed to do, but now he's got to do it all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did get a fairly decent margin there of 7/10, so if he can pull 7 or 8/10, so if he can pull that sort of gap again, I mean, that's a very nice position to be. It's certainly not out the toe, but it's at a point where the toe is starting to weaken. So if he can get to that point again and have the people behind him start battling, maybe he might just be able to pull away. And as soon as you're out of the toe, it's fairly straightforward for, hopefully, for him to keep that gap and potentially even pull away as people start to back up behind him. Didn't expect to see the safety car, especially since the safety car is typically more for larger incidents. But yeah, I mean, with Nijar having that jump start, putting him back with a drive-through penalty, I'm not sure where he'll end up there.
You'll have to wait and see, of course. I think they're filing their way back into starting position, maybe. Not entirely sure as to what's going on. Race control, very busy, of course, behind the scenes, making sure everyone's doing exactly the right thing as the race is neutralized. So we're yet to see the full potential of race number 1. Stick around, of course, afterwards, because we've got our reverse grid race number 2, which will see the top 10 finishers flipped onto their head as we then get going for the second race of the evening. Zach Sweeney, Drew Peters in the commentary booth to talk you through all of the action right now under a safety car period briefly, hopefully before Jordan Taylor will bring them into the pit lane and kickstart this race once again. Of course, it's Smith that leads the pack. What does he need to do off that safety car restart in order to keep it going into turn 1?
It's a good question. I think it's a case of, backing up the pack as much as he can, let the safety car fall away, trying to catch everybody off guard, which sounds fairly obvious, but it can be a difficult thing to do. It depends on, the what he ends up doing. There's quite a few strategies you can try and do off of the safety car start in order to back that pack up as much as possible and get a big gap. But I think it's going to be a case of just trying to really go either early or go late, and trying to catch Will Clark lacking a little bit and catch him kind of almost sleeping.
Exactly. You've just got to eye up. And again, safety car restarts are something that all of these drivers are going to have to come accustomed to. If racing is the career path they're going to choose, is something they're going to rise through the ranks with, especially just not even safety car starts, but even just rolling starts, standing starts, loads of different ways to attack. We have got one more lap under the safety car before we get racing once again. I think there was a brief server issue at the start of the race. I think we have still got everyone in. They're just going to be filing their way into order before we then get going again. I think a couple of people didn't quite make the start, but hopefully now all is good. They've done the wave around. They can rejoin at the back of the pack, and we can go racing for hopefully a clean run to the end. 15 minutes. It'll be about 13 and a half, I want to say, by the time we go racing again. But it will be Smith from Clark, of course, taking a double podium at Alton Park to kickstart the season. With the absence of McAllister, and Gabriel Norse, of course, at the moment down in P10, he's got a decent chance of provisionally taking the championship lead at the end of round 2.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like it's going to be fairly fine margins in this, with perhaps positions, switching back and forward throughout the season and having so many people on such similar pace. We saw the gaps in qualifying, and we saw Logan McAllister last round, who's not here this round, who also seems to be similar pace. So I think there's about 4 people in this championship at the minute who are, incredibly similar. And I think it's just going to be whoever ends up crossing the line in first, with the toe being so strong, and whoever ends up finding themselves in the right position and being strategic with their overtakes, to make sure that they end up not being swamped on the last lap. So I think we're going to see lots of championship position swapping throughout the season.
Hopefully so, because that is then going to be a telling sign of a close level of competition. Of course, reminder, the winner of this championship, when we decide it at Alton Park in a few weeks' time, will get their ticket to the Ginetta Scholarship over the 11th to 13th of October, where they will fight for a potential seat in the 2025 Ginetta Junior Championship in the real world. Second place gets themselves 3 hours in the Ginetta Sim and a factory tour, with third place getting themselves a 34-inch Samsung gaming monitor. So plenty of prizes to be fighting for, and at the end of the day, points definitely do mean prizes. So having that attendance, they do get 2 drop races, which they can divvy up amongst the season. So they can do race 1 of round 1 and race 2 of round 5 or whatever. They get deducted from their overall points all to hopefully keep the championship more alive. We are going to be having, just been told, 1 more lap under safety car, just while race control sort of sort out a couple more issues, trying to get Riley Pogue to join the back of the field. But in the meantime, again, if you're joining us in YouTube chat, hello and welcome, and thank you for tuning in here on the Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing YouTube channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn the bell on to stay up to date with all things sim racing. Of course, if you are out and about at any MSV circuit in the UK, if you're at any big event, you might see some of the Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing rigs set up. Definitely jump in to see if you can contest for the lap time competitions that they host, usually relevant to the event that's going on. When I properly met Mick Sutton for the first time at the Donington Historic Festival at the beginning of May. They had the Bentley Speed 8, the BMW M3 E30, and a Ford Cortina, very relevant to the historic nature of the event that was on, and it's always a lot of fun. Top quality rigs and, of course, top quality fun on the platform of Assetto Corsa. Is it something that you use quite often to maybe train? Do you jump in the Ginetta car to get some practice laps done before you head to the track?
Yeah, for sure. I think with sim racing, I've always been of the belief that it's less about training in the specific car and track that you're going to be doing, and more about keeping your practice very varied so that you're adaptable to lots of different tracks, lots of different cars and conditions. But I would also say that it is fairly important to do at least some practice in the specific car and track combination that you're going to be driving, because if your models are realistic enough, you can get some braking points, get some rough speeds that you're going to be carrying through the corners, and especially to just get an idea of, exactly where the track goes and all the elevation change that you can use to your advantage. So it's one of those things that I think isn't the most vital thing to do, but it's a good thing to do definitely before you go to the track.
Safety car in this lap then. Jordan Taylor shot off from the rest of the field, of course, in a slightly quicker car than the Ginetta Juniors. Addison Smith would have led them from the effective pole position for the restart, but decided to get the jump really early. Not entirely sure if he's allowed to do that. My understanding is that he's not, but he's got the jump. We go green flag racing once again. Half of the race already in the books. 10.5 minutes left to go. It's Smith from Clark, Snaith, Samuel, and Nija, the top 5. Using all of the track into Redgate Corner is Will Clark, of course, double podium finisher a week ago, looking to take 2 steps up on that podium. Gabriel Norse, of course, second place in the championship, getting the squeeze going into Redgate Corner. Boot squeezing him all the way to the inside. What could this mean as Boot goes sideways? Gabriel Norse squirms his way through. Chilton to the outside as well, finds his way through up into the top 10. But Gabriel Norse trying to find some progress forward. Harry Power side by side through the Craner curves with Lewis Morton Evans. That is not really something you see very often, but Morton Evans going into the old hairpin has the inside line and has 7th place as well.
Yeah, that was a great move there. I mean, once you're on the inside at the old hairpin, there's really not much you can do. But yeah, we've seen quite a bit of action already with Callum Boot being spun at turn 1, I think that was, and Addison Smith going very early on the restart, but I think it's legal. I'm not actually fully sure. I think we'll have the race officials checking that. But if it is legal, then that was a great start because he completely jumped everyone. He's already got that 8/10 gap that he sort of needs to start getting out of the toe. So that's a really great place for him to be now.
Yeah, exactly. Building on that, and of course, trying to just ever so slightly get their way out of that slipstream range. Kairos Samuel in this fight for 4th place. Nija was able to find his way through on the CS Racing number 7. They're working their way downhill towards the Melbourne hairpin. And the thing is that already we had a sprint format. 20 minutes is not a long time to have a race. It's now been halved because we've spent most of it under safety car, so time really is of the essence, and maybe a little bit of haste and desperation could be creeping into the minds of these drivers because they realise that, hang on, we haven't got a lot of time to get these moves done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely how it works. I mean, I've seen in the past in different series, 1-lap restarts, and even in F1 you sometimes get that, and then the desperation really does to come out, and especially in a series like this, where the margins are so close and the racing is so good, people do want to get the move done as quickly as possible. When your race time is halved, that certainly makes it more interesting and makes the urge to get past the person in front of you much greater. But I'm sure Addison Smith would have been loving that safety car period, being in first, just having the race time slowly go down and not have to defend for quite so long.
Getting closer at the front, Addison Smith versus Will Clark, less than half a second between the pair of them. Not much separating this battle either. Gabriel Norse trying to power his way forward by getting his way past Harry Power going into the old hairpin. Nicely done as he works his way through. Anthony Roberts, a drive-through penalty under the safety car, saw him drop to 6th. He's now worked his way into 5th, or has he? Because Kairos Samuel with a huge send to the inside of McLean's up towards Coppice. Around the outside goes the 25 machine. He is going to be able to hang on in the orange and black Ginetta machine. Around the outside for the next right as well, chops the nose and stays ahead for 5th place. But for our pole sitter, this is not what he wants at all. Fight for the lead, less than a quarter of a second.
Yeah, it seems like something's happened there. Maybe either made a mistake or didn't quite get out of that toe range, and now Will Clark is right on the back of him. He's pulled out another little bit of a gap there, but it doesn't seem that that's going to last for very long, especially since In fact, I say that and they're battling behind, so if he can play this well now, not make any mistakes, he might be able to pull out quite a gap here, as when you battle, especially in a car with no power like these, that really does start to add up, and it can lead to the leaders getting away very, very quickly.
It's all about momentum in low-powered cars, keeping that minimum speed up, because it's hard to get back up because of the low power. Just over, I believe, 120 brake horsepower in 800 kilos of car. Quite nippy, but of course still fairly low-powered. Only a 1.2-litre engine is in the front of these Ginettas, so you do have to put your foot down and maybe wait a little while before you get yourself up to speed, and it's playing into the hands of Addison Smith, who does lead the way. Nathan Snaith, though, what would you do if you're in a situation, right? We saw him attack. Is that the right thing to do if you're third place in this train right now, knowing that Addison Smith got such a good launch off the safety car restart with only 6 minutes left to go? There is a chance for both Will Clark and Nathan Snaith to find their way through on Addison Smith had they not begun to battle. Or is it right for Snaith to maybe lead that charge in second place?
It's a good question. I mean, you've really got to judge your pace compared to the car in front of you. And if Nathan was thinking that Will was perhaps a bit slower than him, which I'm not sure of exactly what was happening, but it did seem like it actually, because Nathan just set the fastest lap last lap, I think. He might have wanted to try and make the move, but if he did try and go for the move, he's really got to make it stick, because by doing that, he's lost time to Addison Smith now. So if he did want to go for that, he really needs to make it stick first time, as we see lots of carnage going on with Lewis Morton Evans going off there. And I believe that is Harry Power as well.
Yeah, it was. Get very, very busy through the Craner curves, downhill side by side, momentarily 3 wide, and up the hill through the old hairpin towards McLean's and Coppice, and it did not end well for them. Slight bit of contact, tapped them round, and that is, well, not necessarily day done, but definitely knocked out of contention. Focusing back in at this fight for the lead, 5 minutes left to go. It'll probably be about 3 laps at the line. Smith leads Clark from Snaith, and they're keeping each other at an arm's length. Of course, Nijar not a million miles away either, just 2 seconds back. And if they continue to battle as hard as we'd potentially expect, we could see more drivers brought in to the fight. Addison Smith, though, doing a good job, just doing exactly what he needs to. There's not really much that Will Clark can do to launch an attack. However, a poor lap there from Snaith, nearly a second back on the 2 leaders. Fastest laps coming in from Nijar and Roberts as well, as they try to climb their way into contention. The bottom line is that was not a good lap from Nathan Snaith. It could well be a 2-horse fight at the front with just a handful of laps left to go.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to tell what's happening at the minute, whether maybe Addison Smith's managing the gap, Will Clark might be managing the gap. But, yeah, I mean, the gap is still very small, really. I mean, it's less than half a second at the minute, and with 4 minutes left to go, it could be that Will Clark is being patient, waiting for a mistake, or maybe waiting for a nice gap to open up for him until he's close enough, and then he goes for the move into the lead. And yeah, there doesn't seem to be much reason for him to go for the lead at this stage in the race. You know, there is only 4 minutes left, which seems like not very much, but that does still mean a couple of laps, and that is quite a long time in these cars. So it's difficult to tell whether yeah, Will Clark is just waiting for that moment, as it does look like he might be looking for it down here, maybe just trying to unsettle Addison Smith at the minute, looking to the inside, trying to force a mistake out of him, as we do see Addison Smith making a mistake and Will Clark capitalising on that and getting into first.
Fogger TSs are always very, very difficult, and one small mistake can be disastrous. Will Clark able to keep that consistency, able to get that clean run through, applied the pressure to Addison Smith, and now leads the way. A handful of laps left to go, and it seems that he is in prime position to take his first victory of the season, his 3rd consecutive podium as well, on what has been a barnstorming start to 2024 for Will Clark. 3 minutes left on the clock. There you can see the green and blue machine of Addison Smith reeled in by Nathan Snaith. In fact, it's not really the top 3, about a second apart apiece. In fact, the entirety of the top 5, about a second or a second and a half apart apiece. All 5 of them fairly close on pace as they break the beam and set fairly competitive lap times. It's just the case that they're not quite close enough to really make those moves. And in fairness for Addison Smith, he could well be knocked his confidence ever so slightly off bound, and that could be something that obviously Will Clark was able to capitalise on, but could then be something that Nathan Snaith could snatch up if Addison continues to make those mistakes.
Most definitely. I mean, for Addison Smith there. That was so unlucky for him because as he went into the gravel in these cars especially just immediately kills all of your momentum, and you're pretty much back down into first or second gear probably, to try and get your momentum back up. And in such a fast corner like that, as we see Lewis Morton Evans also going into the gravel to find out how much it slows you down. But yeah, with Addison Smith going into the gravel there, he's got to immediately get all the way back up the gears, and with the Fogarty S's being such a fast chicane, any momentum lost through there means that Will Clark can just capitalise on what happens, as he did. And even Nathan Snaith might, as you say, come back into contention now. It does seem like the gap between Addison Smith and Nathan Snaith is staying the same or even growing. So I'm not thinking he's going to be able to capitalise very easily with Addison Smith now being in the tow of Will Clark. And Will Clark thinking about defending already as we go into probably 2 laps left after the end of this lap. So he's just wanting to keep that position as Addison Smith really getting all over his gearbox now and even getting side by side.
Yeah, they are side by side for the lead on what is going to be the penultimate lap of the race. Addison Smith, a PB through Sector 2, a purple Sector 1, showcasing his speed, not phased in his confidence at all. And Will Clark is under pressure. Final lap of the race then with a minute left on the clock. And look how much Will Clark is defending all the way to the white line, not leaving any space for Addison Smith to fill as they give the squeeze. Bit of door-to-door contact as they approach Redgate Corner. Addison Smith tries to go to the outside. Will Clark defends, but the up and under is there. The 15 goes through. Smith takes the lead on the final lap of the race for race number 1 of the 2024 Ginetta Junior official eSeries here at Donington Park. Through goes Addison Smith. Nathan Snaith now brought into contention as well. 30 seconds on the clock. Donington Park does not disappoint. Will Clark will be beating himself up that he went way too deep through turn 1 and threw away the lead.
Yeah, I mean, turn 1, that's the absolute perfect place to get the switch back there. I mean, such a wide bit of track. If you defend on the inside, and he held him to the inside, that's where that contact came from, and swooped back over to the left and could easily get that cutback, as we now see Nathan Snaith challenging for second place on Will Clark. And this is another place where he could fall victim to the switchback if Nathan Snaith gets this right. And he could now, as we see, Will Clark defending again, but Nathan Snaith has the run on him here, and if he can hold it around the outside, this would be a hell of a move.
It would be indeed. Has he got the bravery to send it though? Will Clark, of course, has got the advantage going into the Fogarty S's. I don't think Snaith has many intentions of backing down, but is forced to in the end. It seems that Addison Smith then is the favourite to take the victory, but who's going to be filling in second? Who's going to take the final step on the podium as well? Outside line for Nathan Snaith as they approach Goddard's. Downhill braking, so of course you're going with gravity. You've got to brake a little bit earlier, trying to get the up and under into Goddard's. I don't think Will Clark is going to take any chances here. Defends the inside. Is there anything Nathan Snaith can do to promote himself in a second place? Has a look to the inside of the blue and black machine, but not quite close enough as they approach the final corner, but it's too deep for Will Clark. The inside opens up. Through goes Nathan Snaith. They're going to be side by side to the line. It's going to be Addison Smith that takes the victory for race number 1 here at Donington Park. Sees the checkered flag first, but who's going to be second? It's Will Clark that takes the silver ahead of Nathan Snaith. Nijar and our pole sitter of Anthony Roberts completes the top 5. Who's going to finish 6th as Cairo Samuel battles his way to the checkered flag with, of course, a bit of lap traffic in the form of Riley Poe, so nothing to worry about in terms of positional changes there. But what a race and what a final lap that was. These young drivers do not hold back when it comes to the racing action.
That was, yeah, a really amazing last lap there. Will Clark probably very happy that he managed to hold on to second there, running very deep, but managing to just get the exit and the overlap on Nathan Snaith there so that he couldn't run him off and hold him out wide, and then, of course, lose that second spot on the podium. But really amazing racing there, and Addison Smith would have been very, very happy to see that battle going on in his mirrors there, because he was able to get a very nice and easy win with a 1.5 second gap, I think it was. So yeah, no worries for him, but very much worries for Will Clark.
Yeah, exactly. Not ideal, of course, for him. I mean, he had a prime opportunity to go and take that race victory, but in the end was not meant to be. But he did well to hang on to second place. Of course, when all the drivers have ran their way across the checkered flag, we'll run you through the results before we take to our top 3 interviews. Let's, of course, take to our first one. It is going to be P3 man Nathan Snaith, and what was a pretty sensational battle, it must be said, all throughout the entirety of the race. Nathan, in the end, it was only good enough for 3rd, but the possibility for the race win was there. Is that your aim for race 2?
Not really. I'm going to openly admit it, I'm not quick. I'm surprised to even be in P3 at the moment, which, if I'm being honest, I'd never expect to even be. I've partaken in a lot of the past 3 PASR events, and I've really enjoyed doing them. They're all quite good fun, and I don't do it for the win. I just do it to have fun and drive around with my mates that I make during all this.
Very nice indeed. So, I mean, fair enough. You're here for a bit of fun, but a podium nonetheless to get it to the way. I mean, your pace was very, very quick.
Thank you.
What are the biggest challenges then of sort of Donington Park of this car? Is it a sort of a learning curve for you to jump in and drive quick?
Kind of. The car mod is quite sketchy in some parts of this track, like shifting down into first for the hairpins, which you would get a better exit in, but it shoots the back end out too much. So you're either sacrificing a lot because of how the car drives, in a way.
Interesting stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming in and having a chat with us. Best of luck for race 2. Congratulations on your 3rd place. We're going to move our way up
Thank you.
podium now to P2. Will Clark, a battle for the race lead. In the end, only 2nd, but still one better than what you did at Alton Park.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made quite a few mistakes in the last lap, which, you know, I could have maybe won, but yeah, I tried my best, so I'll see what I can do in the next race.
And what's your sort of aim going to be? How are you going to approach this? Reverse grid, of course, so you'll be starting from 9th place on the grid. How are you going to work your way forward? What's the aim? Is it send it, or are you going to be a little bit careful on the opening couple of laps?
Well, obviously I don't want to crash, so I'll just be a bit conserved. But yeah, I'll try my best and just look for gaps where I can overtake people and try and get another podium.
Hopefully so. Of course, best of luck for you as things stand. You are going to be closing in ever so slightly towards the championship lead. I think actually you do pip it by 1 point ahead of Gabriel Norse thanks to your positions. Of course, drop weeks and stuff. Still a long way to go in the season, but what are your aspirations then for the rest of the championship? Is it to go all the way?
Well, obviously I want to win, but we'll just see how it goes. I'm going to try my best, so. Yeah.
Find out indeed. Well, thank you very much for coming in and having a chat with us. Best of luck, of course, for race 2. And of course, hopefully we'll see you maybe take to the top step. It seems that we don't have Addison Smith with us, so we won't have him chatting with us. We'll talk to him after race number 2 if he's able to maybe get himself back onto the top 3. But Jude, happy faces then, of course, from Nathan Snaith and Will Clark. And do you reckon we're going to see them climb the order into race 2?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if it was like Alton Park, I think it was Logan McAllister and Gabriel Norse were able to get from dead last and second from last all the way up to P1 and 2. So I think if these guys can work together, maybe I'm not sure if they'll be wanting to work together, but if they do, I'm sure they could probably weave their way through the pack and potentially get up into that top 3, and maybe then they can start battling. But yeah, we'll have to see what their strategy ends up being.
We will indeed. Well, we are going to be taking to the grids. We've got 33 seconds left on the clock, and good news, Jude, is we've got all of the drivers on their respective grid slots, which is a good start. Who's coming out on top for this reverse grid race?
I would say Addison Smith actually, because he did seem to make some fairly smart moves. He did make a mistake, but he was able to recover from it very well. So if he can keep it clean, I think he might be able to take the top spot.
Well, we'll find out in due course. 20 minutes back on the clock. Reverse top 10 for the start. It's Harry Power from Morton Evans, the front row. Chilton, then Gabriel Norse, who's 1 point off the championship lead. Race 2 here at Donington Park. Lights out. Let's go racing. The clock ticks down as we head towards Redgate Corner. Power gets a good start from pole position, but immediately is contested as Morton Evans tries to edge his way ahead. Outside line as they run their way in towards turn number 1. Not quite, I think, close enough to go for the move. Sam Chilton looks to the inside. In fact, the sweeping nature of the corner allows Morton Evans to go the long way round to take the lead of the race. Beautiful stuff as they head into Hollywood. Riley Poger's round at the background, I think, with contact with Callum Boot potentially, as Harry Power now is side by side. They settle themselves into 2 rows of 2 in the fight for the lead and the fight for third. Harry Power forced to tuck in, but there's contact. Huge slide from Morton Evans. Harry Power goes off. A huge bit of carnage as they run their way into the old hairpin, and that is contact for Addison Smith, who gets involved in the shenanigans. Harry Power has to go off the road as well, but Will Clark climbing his way through to 5th. Nathan Snaith up to 3rd.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I don't think you could have asked for too much more action there, as we've got Gabriel Norse into P1, and Addison Smith now is in 8th, so he's going to struggle to recover from there, you know, with such a big gap now to P1, as we've still got lots of battling going on and lots of close racing at the front. Last round, Gabriel Norse was able to take a win, so I think he's in a very nice position now to potentially extend that gap in front and even take the win if he's lucky enough. But yeah, I mean, that was quite the... Crane of Curves is always a place where there can be lots of chaos if there's not some precaution taken. And yeah, we certainly saw what can happen when that doesn't happen. And I think we're going to be getting a safety car. And yes, we are.
Yeah, we go. Jordan Taylor. Wow, goodness me. Do you know what he said to us before the broadcast? I don't know if you're in the voice chat yet, but he said, "How am I going to keep myself awake?"
Yes, he did say that, and I think this is going to keep him awake, given having two exits from the pit lane. As last race he had 0, so...
So lazy. I can't get the staff, honestly.
I know.
Oh, it's terrible. It's fine. He's on track at the moment, and he's also texting while driving. Of course, he kind of has to, as he's forced to. He's got to stay in communication with race control. But there he is.
Almost going off.
The only time he'll ever lead a race. There's Callum Boot on the inside of that's the Melbourne hairpin. Taking a while to get his way back going again, and escapes back to pit lane. I think that is going to be our first DNF of the evening. Kyrie Samuel, under safety car, rather impressively finds his way to the exit of Redgate. But it's going to be Gabriel Norse then that leads the pack behind Jordan Taylor. Of course, for Norse, this could be his second race win of the season. And of course, with Will Clark in 5th place at the moment, Norse needs some good points here, of course, for the championship. Because even though we're only on race 3 of what is going to be a 14-race season, when we get to round 6 and 7 and we go, well, this is the championship situation, and then we look back to rounds 1 and 2, these are the moments later on in the season where you look back and go, I could have scored more points there. Don't put yourself in that position. Just score the points anyway, and then put yourself in that best position possible later on in the season. So yes, it's early, but the championship starts from round 1, and then you have to hit the ground running. So for Gabriel Norse, this is important if he's one of our championship frontrunners.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have 2 drop rounds here, or 2 drop races, should I say. But every point really does matter, because you don't know if you're going to have a couple of DNFs later in the season. So you've really got to try and keep it on track as much as you can, which sounds obvious, but it is very important, and especially for Gabriel Norse, who is currently, well, certainly before this round, he was 2nd in the championship. So he's definitely been a front runner so far. And therefore, you know, being up into P1 at the minute is very, very important for him. And I'm sure Nathan Snaith, given his interview, will be very, very surprised to be where he is now. Probably starting more towards the back, given him being on the podium for the previous race, and it's been a reverse grid. So getting up into P2 is a great result.
For Nathan Snaith, of course, it was P9 and P6 at Autumn Park. Not bad for someone that's only here for a bit of fun. Safety car is in this lap, so Gabriel Norse is in control of the field. I think he's punched it. So let's go green flag racing once again. Nathan Snaith, Kyrie Samuel, Samuel Chilton, the top 4 with Will Clark then. Contest for race victory in the first race of the evening is in 5th place after good progress from 9th on the grid. 15.5 minutes left to go as we get this race back underway. Gabriel Norse leads it, of course, as the beam breaks. Plenty of times for that fastest lap. Of course, it's not representative, but a very, very important point indeed if you want to be edging yourself further in the championship. Great run through turn number 1 for Nathan Snaith. I think Gabriel Norse is going to be looking over his shoulder very soon, because I don't think Nathan Snaith is going to be happy to be in 2nd for too long.
No, I mean, well, when you're in 2nd and this close to the guy in front of you, it's definitely a position that you want to be in. I mean, well, he said he was surprised to be in P3, so I'm sure now that he's in P2, seeing the opportunity for P1 as we come up to McLean's and he's in the tow now, he's probably going to want to take that position, although he does back out a little bit, looking to get the switchback perhaps so he can get the inside into Coppice. But I'm sure that Gabriel Norse will probably defend that again, as he does. But this is, again, another great place to get a run on Gabriel and potentially even take him down into the Fogarty S's. So this is a battle that seems like he's going to be raging on for the rest of the race now. I mean, as soon as you get into this battle, it's difficult to get away with the slipstream being so strong. And they also have a 3-second gap to the guy behind them. So, I mean, they don't really need to be too conservative and try and work together. They can definitely kind of get a bit elbows out with each other. So, yeah, I'm sure that, well, we might see well, if there's enough battling, we might see Samuel Chilton starting to come out back into contention along with the rest of the pack.
Indeed, so there's a huge send from Riley Pogue there to the inside of the Melbourne Hairpin, getting his way ahead of Addison Smith, who, of course, was our race 1 winner. He's down in 7th place, not quite able to make the progress, of course, was involved in that lap 1 crash. Will Clark to the inside of Anthony Roberts, who pipped him to pole position in qualifying, finds his way through into 4th, and immediately is knocking on the door for Samuel Chilton for that fight for 3rd. But what it's done is it's released the top 2, who match each other's lap time that last time, setting their personal best of the race. Gabriel Norse from Nathan Snaith, of course, his best finish before the season was 8th. His best season before this round was 6th. 2 consecutive podiums on the cards. Maybe his first victory as well for Nathan Snaith is there. Will Clark forcing himself and Sam Chilton off the road, pushing ever hard through Redgate, inside line through the Craner Curves and Hollywood. Nicely done indeed, as Anthony Roberts wants a shout at the contest for 4th place. Not quite close enough to go for the move into the old hairpin. So Will Clark goes through to 3rd. Chilton drops to 4th, but Anthony Roberts looking feisty in this 3-way fight.
Yeah, it's a great battle. You can see Anthony Roberts there flashing his lights, which we don't have in the real car. But it does seem to be getting quite tasty at this battle for 3rd, as we see Anthony Roberts there going a bit wide, and Riley Pogue, I believe, that is getting up onto the inside of him. There's not much you can do about someone being on the inside here. I say that, but he does hold it around the outside. That was a very brave move there.
Was indeed, and it's not done yet though. You've got to keep it pinned. Maybe getting a little bit of a bump there is Anthony Roberts from Smith, who wants to assume that inside as well. Maybe we could see Pogue lose 2 places in 1 set of corners. He is going to fill the space on the inside. Pogue tries to go the long way round, battling their way through nicely. Great respect between the 2 young drivers, but here comes Nija as well. Gets the run on the pair of them. Could we see 3 wide down the hill in towards the Melbourne Hairpin? The 00 tries to send it on the brakes. They are going to be 3 wide, both of them going deep. Could we see a double up and under here from Smith? Not quite, with the opportunity not quite arising for him. So it's going to be Nija and Pogue that contest themselves going into Goddard's Hairpin. Smith trying to give Nija the little bit of a push he needs to assume the inside for the Goddard's Hairpin. Way too late on the brakes, bit of contact. There's ding dongs as they're sent round. Smith sneakily and very cheekily finds his way through into 6th place. Not entirely sure as to the 2 behind are going to be very happy about that.
Yeah, that seemed a little bit cheeky. I mean, he did give them a bump draft up the hill, which was fine because he wanted to get the person on the inside there, make sure that they get through. But it seemed like he just went a little bit too late on the brakes, tapped into the person in front of him, and that ended up taking the both of them off. And he's come out benefiting very much from that, with them now behind each other, with a gap to him and battling. So he's now ended up in 6th, as we see Riley Pogue sliding down Craner Curves and collecting, I believe that is Morton Evans.
It was Asian Nija, yes it was, down the Craner Curves. Well held, it must be said, for Nija, but still not ideal. There's the fight for the lead, by the way. They are still there, they are still contesting. I think we are going to see maybe a change for the lead. Not detested at all as Gabriel Norse, as Nathan Snaith tries to sneak his way through the inside. Small twitch there through Coppice. Norse goes wide, hits the grass. Nathan Snaith goes through and leads a race. Race number 2 here at Donington Park looks to be going the way of Nathan Snaith, who now leads by 1.1 seconds. Just did enough on the inside going into Coppice, showed his nose, didn't really commit to the move, but it was enough to force Norse off his line, to knock his confidence, send him wide, and through he went for 1st place.
Yeah, some people would call that a mind punch, just getting to the inside there, baking like you're going to dive down the inside and making him go a little bit wide off his normal line, and he just wasn't quite ready for that and ended up just tapping that outside grass, and especially through Coppice, that's really a place where you don't want to be touching the grass on the outside. You lose all your momentum because you have to back off the power as to not get pulled all off the track. And now Nathan Snaith has a 1.5 second gap, which he'll be very, very pleased with based on his interview. So yeah, he'll be absolutely loving this, and he's in a great position now to just make no mistakes, keep driving forward, and take the win. And hopefully I haven't given him commentator's curse there.
No, it's fine, Jude. It doesn't exist. It does not exist. This is our first time working together. You'll find out very quickly how much I despise the commentator's curse, because it's not true. I'll tell you why it's not true. It's because there are three things that affect a race. It's bad driving, bad luck, or a bit of both. And us as commentators don't have voodoo powers that affect that. But maybe he could strike down Lewis Morris-Evans, unfortunately stricken down through Redgate Corner, rejoins the circuit in P11. But the thing about Nathan Snaith is that he's got now under half the race to hold it. And we saw how quickly the pendulum can swing with this man right here, Will Clark, looks secure, but unfortunately made a mistake that saw him lose the lead and subsequently then the race through a mistake right at the death of it. So yes, it looks good right now for Nathan Snaith, but it's far from over. Will Clark eyeing up Gabriel Norse though, who's dropping back into contention. I've got to be honest, Clark has got some scary pace. I don't think he is done for the lead. I think he's still got a decent shot with 8.5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, I mean, last lap he was a second quicker than Nathan Snaith, as we see Gabriel Norse going very, very wide there, losing all his momentum in the gravel, and potentially now coming under threat from Addison Smith. But Will Clark pulls out a nice 2-second gap, and Nathan Snaith may or may not be happy to see that, because as he gets a big slide on out of Melbourne Loop, whilst he has pulled a big gap because of that, he's now got Will Clark coming after him with no one fighting him, and with Will Clark being a second lap faster than him last lap, in just 3 laps he could even get past him here. So I'm not sure that Nathan Snaith will be too happy to see Will Clark in clean air behind him now, potentially barreling down, looking at P1.
Maybe so. Of course, two drivers that are yet to take a victory this season. Will Clark with that double podium at Alton Park. Nearly got it in race 1, but now has a decent shot at going for it. 3 seconds just under is the gap at the front. 7.5 minutes left to run. Catching is one thing, passing is another, keeping it is another thing entirely. We could have a titanic battle to end the evening here for round number 2 of the Ginetta Junior official E-Series here at Donington Park. Anthony Roberts, our pole position sitter going into race number 1, got that drive through and has since been languishing amongst the mid-pack of the top 10. He has got a run though, maybe to catch Addison Smith, potentially a shot at the podium as Gabriel Norse really dropping back with a couple of mistakes in recent times.
Yeah, there's been a couple of mistakes from a few people in this race that's led to their races being not necessarily ended, but certainly their chances of where they would like to be taken out. I mean, as we see again, Nathan Snaith here is actually holding that gap very nicely. I mean, last lap it was about the same, and now it's still, as I say, the same. So he could be looking, with only 6 minutes left here, at potential his first ever win in any PASR championship. So this is a moment for him where if he can just keep it on the track, keep it clean, keep his pace up, he might be able to take a win here. I say that he does lose 3/10 through the Fogarty S's to Will Clark behind him. And 6 minutes in this is quite a lot, with us having probably, I'm guessing, about 3 laps left to go. But it'll be very, very interesting to see not only whether Nathan Snaith can hold on, but about this battle with Gabriel Norse and Anthony Roberts that's raging on behind.
Exactly. Three-way fight for 3rd place. Smith leads Norse, leads Roberts. 5 minutes, 53 seconds left on the clock. We hope you are all enjoying at home. Let us know who you're cheering on for. Let us know what your thoughts are of this evening. It's been absolutely fantastic. I've been on the edge of my seat all the way through, and well, we've still got more to be decided. That last time by, Snaith just doing enough to keep Clark at bay. It seems that momentum has fizzled out ever so slightly, or Snaith has found a little bit more pace, able to keep that gap pretty much just at a stalemate between the pair of them. But if there's one thing that sim racing commentary has taught me over the last 4 years, it is that anything can and probably will happen. So don't get complacent.
No, for sure. I mean, Will Clark wasn't his second lap faster that lap. He was only 2/10 quicker. And I mean, that is enough for if Nathan Snaith was to make a big mistake, which is incredibly easy to do in these cars, on the sim and in real life. It's enough for Will Clark to get right back on the back of him, as we see a very fierce battle going on between Addison Smith and Gabriel Norse here. Gabriel Norse being on the outside, coming into Coppice, trying to hold it around on the outside there, but having to slot back in. And that has allowed Anthony Roberts, by the look of it, to close back up to the back of him. And too wide into the Fogarty S's typically doesn't go. So this will be interesting to see now.
Will be indeed. Let's see if they're going to be able to get it done. Gabriel Norse on the outside. Big snap of oversteer from Addison Smith as he drops the car on the inside, tumbles his way down. It's then going to be Roberts versus Norse as they then approach the Melbourne hairpin, and ahead going into the corner is Norse letting off on the brakes. He does look bit of a front double lock up as well as they run their way through, but impressively gets it stopped, keeps third place, heading on to the third to final lap of this race. In fact, actually, I think it might be quite close. No, it will be the third to final lap. It's going to be very, very close, with this being the penultimate or the third to final, but still a little bit of distance left to run in this race. Gabriel Norse then did well to hang on to that, but an unfortunate mistake, it must be said, for Addison Smith. It could have been an absolute worldie of a move. It wasn't meant to be. He drops down to 8th.
Yeah, I mean, I predicted it right there. That 2 into 1 through Foggy S's does not typically go, with, of course, Addison Smith unfortunately coming off worse. I'm not sure if there was any contact there or if it was just a mistake from him leading to him looping it round and now going back to 8th place from, I believe it was 3rd. So we see, again, Will Clark holding about, Nathan Snaith holding about the same gap to Will Clark. But the battle is very much not over for Gabriel Norse. With Addison Smith going off, and Anthony Roberts now getting a very nice run out of the old hairpin and up the hill towards McLean's, with him now being able to get onto the inside for this next corner and probably being able to make the move as I say that, but Gabriel Norse is squeezing very much to the inside there and manages to hold it around the outside. And again, Anthony Roberts has the inside for Coppice, which he does not because Gabriel Norse was able to get ahead. But yeah, again, this looks a little bit like a repeat of last lap now.
It does indeed. Let's see if we're going to see another move. 2 minutes 40 on the clock. It's going to be close as to whether or not this is the penultimate lap. We'll keep an eye on and update you, of course, as we get that. But the lead at the gap at the gap for the lead. Oh, I can speak English. It's fine. Nathan Snaith versus Will Clark has come down, but not by a significant margin. So it seems that all he has to do is keep it on the grey stuff. I do love how that is literally the definition of the track in the rules and regs. It is the track is the grey bit, and then decide the rest from that. So only the best here at Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. So keep it on the grey stuff, and he'll probably be fine.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always an allowance for the extension of the curb, but the grass is not the optimal place to be, and especially not the gravel, as we've seen a few drivers meet the gravel, and it didn't end up faring quite so well for them, as, for example, Addison Smith went into the gravel through the chicane at the back, and that ended up, or in the last race, sorry, and that ended up leading to him losing a position, which he managed to get back in the end. But yeah, the gravel in these cars with such low power just really doesn't work, and especially around Donington, certainly in real life, I would say Donington probably has this, the deepest gravel, as I have unfortunately found out a couple of times around here. But yeah, again, the gap from Nathan Snaith to Will Clark is coming down. It's come down by about a second since I was talking about it most recently. But with only one lap left to go, it's looking likely that Nathan Snaith will be able to hold on to this.
It does indeed. 1 minute on the clock. It's going to be very, very tight indeed. But that gap is coming down 1.5 seconds. Only takes a small twitch to change the tide. Will Clark was able to benefit from a mistake in race 1. He was then on the disadvantaged end of it with his own mistake just a couple laps later. Will he be able to secure his first victory of the season with a sensational victory here at Donington Park? We'll have to wait and see. Addison Smith trying to ascend his way forward in a fight with Riley Pogue. Both of them have suffered issues in this race, but it's nice to see they're powering on and still searching for the points, because at the end of the day, these are points that could make the difference in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between a DNF and 8th is still very significant. So if it ends up being, you know, Addison Smith down there in 7th, these points, if he stays being a championship contender, as he has seemed to be throughout this round, even just these points could end up making the difference with, I know that a couple of championships that I've seen in the past now have decided the lead is based on one single point. So I think it's 12 points, 15 points maybe that you get for around 7th position can definitely end up making the difference here, as we see, I believe that's Samuel Chilton going around the outside of, is that Nijar there? Yeah, Nijar.
There we go. There's the battle for 5th, final lap of the race. And Of course, Nathan Snaith, that gap is coming down to less than a second. I've been in that position, right? I mean, I've led a couple of races, not many, but a couple. As we'll get back to that in a second, because Sam Chilton is looking to the inside of Nija, no way through on that occasion, but surely the nerves are going to be ramping through for Nathan Snaith. He's finished on the podium for the first time last race. He's now got an opportunity to win. You'd be shaky, would you?
Yeah, definitely would be. I mean, for someone who massively didn't expect to even be on the podium, and now he's leading a race on the final lap with a second gap behind him to someone behind him who is very fast, you would be very nervous. And all he'll be thinking now is to keep it on the track. This is probably one of the most difficult corners to do so, and he has in fact kept it on the track. But the gap to Will Clark is, I was going to say it's dropping, but it is staying about the same. And with 2 corners to go, he will, well, if he makes no mistakes now, he will be able to hold on to this, because 1 second is definitely not enough for a final corner dive bomb, unless there would be a very large steward's inquiry. And it looks like he is going to hold on to that, and Nathan Snaith is going to take his very first PASR win.
He is indeed. He sees the checker flag first. A man that didn't even expect to be at the front. He takes the top step of the podium for race number 2. Nathan Snaith, take a bow, double podium, and a victory here at Donington Park for round number 2 of the 2024 Ginetta Junior official eSeries, brought to you by Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing. Will Clark continues his podium streak with 4 consecutive. A double P3 at Alton Park, a double P2 here at Donington. Could we see him take a double victory when we take to Anglesey in a week's time? Gabriel Norse hangs on to 3rd place ahead of Anthony Roberts, and then behind that is Nija from Chilton, the top 5 and 6. Anthony Smith, our pole sitter, left a lot on the table today, and he'd be quite disappointed as to the trajectory that this evening went. Riley Pogue in 8th ahead of Harry Power, and then comes Cairo Samuel, Lewis Morton Evans, and then of course Callum Boots, our one and only DNF of the evening. A shame to see, but of course a small mistake on his part left him out of contention. But what a battle that was. Nathan Snaith, that went down to the wire, and Will Clark was pushing. He did not want to have any regrets. He wanted to try. If he messed up, then that would have been it, right? But he didn't want to leave this race having not tried. He pushed, he did everything he could, but in the end the gap was too big, and Nathan Snaith, surely he's going to be overjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be very happy with that. I mean, Will Clark was really pushing at the end there, taking it down from about 2.5 second gap to 9/10, but it was just too much for him to end up closing in the end there, as we have Nathan Snaith in the call now for an interview.
We do indeed. Nathan Snaith, take a bow, good sir. so much for being here for fun, and you win.
Yeah, about that. I guess Donington's my track. I mean, I love Donington. I'm just speechless. I'm not quick in the slightest. If you've seen like other PASR series, you would know. I'm bottom to mid pack. I'm completely shocked I'm here. I don't feel like this is real, honestly. I feel like I'm dreaming.
Well, you're not dreaming, mate. I can tell you that for free. You are a race winner this season. You're a double podium sitter as well.
Finally.
What a run. I mean, what was going through those final couple of laps? Because you had 3 seconds back to Will Clark, who we'll talk to in just a moment. That final lap, it was under a second. Was it just nerves? Were you feeling a little bit shaky? Were you thinking that anything could go wrong at any point?
I was thinking everything could go wrong. I'm looking at my hands now, and I'm shaking like mad. Honestly, that last lap, turn 1, I almost just spun. I was so nervous. I was like, I can't screw up. With all the people that have supported me throughout all these series, like my parents, my friends, like everyone, I didn't want to screw this up for them, but I did it.
What a race, man. And it's lovely to see him, sort of you being so overjoyed with it, so passionate. I mean, I've interviewed some of the top racers in sim racing, right? And they come off and I'm like, you won a race. And they're like, yeah, cool. That's what it is, right? And you've come in here and the passion is there. Congratulations. I'm sure you're going to celebrate, probably grab a fruit shoot or something and enjoy it. And hopefully we'll see you back for more race wins this season as well.
I hope so too. This feeling is really enjoyable.
It gets addicting, mate. I promise you, you'll want more of it. We can confirm you, of course, as our driver of the round as well. You have been our choice to take that, so you get yourself some 3M gloves to go with it. Just a little extra bonus on what has already been a fantastic week. But, mate, it's past your bedtime. Go get some sleep. Go get some rest. We'll see you back in Anglesey.
Yeah, I hope I do good there. Knowing my luck, I'll spin it and put it in a wall.
It's fine. It doesn't matter, mate. You're a race winner. That's all it means.
Yeah.
Nathan Snay, thank you very much. Our race winner of race number 2. We'll move on to Will Clark, second place in race number 2. In the end, the gap was closed, but it wasn't quite enough to get the victory. But a run of form. 2 P3s at Alton, 2 P2s at Donington Park. Is it a double win at Anglesey?
Hopefully, I mean, that's the dream, but it's never going to be easy getting onto the podium starting 9th. So I did my best and I pushed every lap, and I was closing at the end. I thought one more lap, it might have been close, but yeah.
Talk us through that opener lap carnage then, and how you sort of dealt with that, because it seemed to be very busy, but yourself and Nathan were able to find your way through very, very well. And I think in doing so, you did yourself a lot of favours for the race ahead, not having to be affected by that wild field spread that happened after that crash.
Yeah, well, there was a huge gaggle of cars, and I was just trying to stay back, stay out of it, and then look for a gap that I could drive through. And I sort of knew that an incident was going to happen, having that many cars in such a close proximity. So yeah, it worked out for me in the end.
Indeed, it did. Will Clark, of course, what are the expectations then for the rest of the season? What are the expectations for Anglesey? Is it a circuit you particularly enjoy?
I've been doing some practice around there, and it seems really fun. So it's a really flowy track. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to carry my confidence that I've got from here through. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for jumping in and having a chat with us. Congrats on some good results today, and hopefully more in Anglesey.
Thank you.
To round off our podium then, we've got Gabriel Norse jumping in. Of course, coming into this round, one of the favourites to maybe go and chase for the championship. You leave this round 5 points off Will Clark going into round number 3. Is the championship the aim still? I mean, that podium in race 2 must have been quite important.
Yeah, well, I had a bit of hardware issues where I was constantly getting screen freezes, and the early start in the first race didn't really help. But yeah, I want to go for the championship. I think it would be a very nice opportunity.
What would it mean to you if you were able to go all the way, win the championship, and then obviously have the opportunity to potentially win a seat for 2025? I mean, what's your racing career been like up until this point? Have you been able to do much, if any, karting, sim racing? How much would it mean for you and your career going forward?
I've done a lot of karting and a lot of sim racing, but I think it would just mean a lot to me to win the championship at the end, but can't get too ahead of myself. I still need to focus on the next few races and practice a lot more.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you for jumping in and having a chat. You leave this round 5 points off the championship. Hopefully you can close that gap for Anglesey and hopefully give us a championship charge all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. And we're going to catch up on race number 1. We didn't quite get a chance to speak to our Mr. Addison Smith over the first race. So, Addison, thank you for jumping in and taking the time to come and have a chat with us. Talk us through not only race 1, but then also the difficulties that happen in race 2.
Yeah, I got a decent start, and I think P1 jumped the start, so got a drive through, so that was good. 3rd place. And I had a bit of a battle with second, and it was good actually. I enjoyed it a lot.
Were you sort of confident going into this round that you were maybe one of the quicker ones to catch? I mean, race 1 was quite hardly fought, but in the end you were able to sort of take it by a couple of seconds. I mean, what were your thoughts and expectations coming into Donington?
Well, on the practice server I was doing alright and I was setting fast laps, so going into it I had a bit of confidence. And after the battle, second had to defend. So on the last lap I was kind of chilled out and brought it home.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult all the way through the race, I'm sure, for you. Into Anglesey, though, how are you feeling, right? I mean, is it a circuit you enjoy? By my calculations, you're 3rd place in the championship. Are we going to expect you to be fighting at the front in Wales?
I mean, I'll have to do a lot of practice because I don't even know what that track is, so...
Oh, brill. That is not ideal. Get practicing, obviously, after a quick rest today, and hopefully you'll be fighting at the front.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome stuff, Addison Smith. P1 in race 1, P7 in race 2. Congratulations on some good results, and hopefully we'll speak to him in a week's time. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the racing action here at Donington Park. But don't go anywhere, because of course, starting Tuesday, we're going to be taking the first round of the Super Touring 2024 Sim Series, brought to you by Pro Sim Rig. They're going to be taking to Donington Park as well. Anyone that's a fan of any form of touring cars, get yourself involved in any way, shape or form, whether you sign up and get yourself on the grid, or whether you sort of watch and cheer on from the sidelines. Maybe we could then see you watch for the first round and then jump your way in later on in the season. We do a round by round entry basis. If you just want to sort of test the waters a little bit, get yourself on the grid, hopefully have a lot of fun as well. And if you want just a casual experience, PASR do a lot of casual fun events as well. So get yourself in the Discord, stay up to date with everything that goes on, and maybe we'll see you out on the track as well. Of course, we rounded off our first 2 rounds of the season. Alton Park last week, Donington Park today. We take to the northwest coast of Wales in a week's time on the 5th of September for Anglesey, before we take to Snetterton, Silverstone, Brands, a trip back to Alton Park for the shorter island layout to round off what is hopefully going to be a barnstorming championship. Jude, thank you for jumping in and once again providing some fantastic insight today. How have you found Donington, and what can we expect in a week's time when we head to Anglesey?
Yeah, thank you for all your commentary as well. But I mean, yeah, this round has been really great. It was even better than Alton, I'd say. You know, we had more people fighting right at the front, more action, more incidents, but they ended up helping the racing in some ways. And yeah, it was a really great round. I mean, Donington is one of the best tracks for racing. It's a really good track for racing. I think Anglesey is a little bit more difficult for that. I mean, there's not quite the same number of, you know, overtaking, and it's a little bit narrower, but that can also make for some very interesting stuff. We've got turn 1 being so fast into turn 2 being a hairpin. That's quite banked in real life. I'm not sure if it is on the sim, but that ends up being quite a good overtaking opportunity. So, and with there being, you know, the same number of drivers continuing forward, and I think we've got Logan McAllister coming back, who was right up in contention. I'm sure that we'll see some great stuff at round 3.
Looking forward to it. Of course, it will be myself, Zach Sweeney, Jude Peters in the commentary box, as it has been today and will be for the rest of the season. Tom O'Farrell has been behind the scenes, following the action, making it very pretty. Mick Sutton is the man to thank, of course, alongside Tom O'Farrell, for making all of this possible here at PASR. All of the competitions, all the communications with racing series and things, those guys do a brilliant job. And of course, we have to sort of give a shout out to Jordan Taylor, our safety car driver, who was very busy today with a couple of safety cars along the way in Donington Park. Unfortunately, we are going to have to say goodbye at some point. Donington Park has been brilliant. We'll see you in a week's time when we take to Anglesey. For the meantime, it's goodbye.